We have the teams for the MCG in Melbourne, the all-important Test 2. It could be a series-winning game for the Lions. It's a must-win game for the Wallabies to keep the series alive and stop them from going to Sydney with a potential 3-0 whitewash staring down the barrel at them. Joe Schmidt has made some changes. I'll come to the Wallabies in a minute. But for the Lions first, and the headlines here, 1 change in the backline. There is 2 changes in the pack, and there are 4 new names coming into the 23, and all of those players are named on the bench. And what's really cool as well, all 4 nations are represented, which just kind of feels right. There is no place for sentiment ultimately in modern elite professional sport, and Andy Farrell is just picking purely on merit as rugby players. But I'm quite glad that there is a Welshman involved, and Jack Morgan carrying the weight of a nation. He's been carrying his rugby team for the last year or so, and he's there. And he's going to be doing his thing in Melbourne, which is really, really cool for the team, for the tour, for all the people in Wales back home as well. And I know I did get a lot of comments, and I got some WhatsApp messages with Welsh mates of mine who were saying that they were supporting Australia last weekend, which I found a little bit sad, to be honest. I wasn't really in the spirit of it. And I don't remember Scottish fans being the same when they were in the doldrums. But regardless, that means hopefully we've got the buy-in from the proud rugby nation of Wales this week as well. There are a few people will be licking their wounds in terms of selection because there were some tight calls and some players missed out. And there will be lots of divided opinions over whether that was the right call or wrong call. But that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it fun. And let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe as well. I'm Tim. I'm in Perth in Australia. Beautiful sunny day for a change. It's been hammering it down with rain for most of this week. There's a little bit of sunshine during the rugby game that I was part of yesterday. It was a big night last night, which is why my eyes might look... I've got a bit of a 1,000-yard stare going on today. And my voice is a bit croaky. There will be more on that coming in the channel very soon. But for now, I just want to focus on this. And look, that looks like an even more powerful team to me than it was already, with the addition in the backline of Bundy Aki. Now, Sione Tuipulotu, I gather, has had a little bit of a knock. The change was noted as injury management, which suggests that Sione Tuipulotu not fully fit and available for this game, which is a massive shame for him with family in Australia that would have been loving seeing their boy via his Greenock grandmother wearing the red of the British and Irish Lions. But he will have to wait for another chance to do that, maybe in Test 3, which is his patch in Sydney. And that will be really interesting at centre to see what would happen. I imagine if the Lions win Test number 2, then quite possibly it would be Tuipulotu and Ringrose that would play, and that would kind of complete the set. We've had an all-Scottish pair. We've now got Aki and Jones, and then it maybe would be Tuipulotu and Ringrose, or it could go straight to the Irish pair for the next Test as well. And I do wonder how much Andy Farrell considered Gary Ringrose in this game, given that with a tight 50-50 call, he lent on the Scottish pair last time. It must have been a temptation to go, should we just go all Irish for this one? 2 guys that know each other. But hey, I mean, they're great rugby players. So Aki and Jones, good for me. As for the bench in the back line, Alex Mitchell continues, but then Blair Kinghorn comes in. The only change to the guys involved in the back 3, there was thought in my mind that Mac Hansen not playing on Tuesday night against the First Nations Pacifica meant that he would be involved because we were told he was fit and available, but he is not in the side. And Freeman and James Lowe can probably count themselves fairly lucky that they weren't replaced because they were both poor last week, but they've been given another chance, and they've both been great players historically and through this year. And Tommy Freeman's been really good in particular on this tour as well until last week. So they've been given another chance to go and show what they're worth. Same with Hugo Keenan. Blair Kinghorn hardly tore up trees midweek, but he did prove his fitness. He is on the bench and can cover the whole of the back 3. And with Owen Farrell on the bench, you have got all bases covered. And in terms of the back 3 combinations, Marcus Smith and Bundy Aki, or Sione Tuipulotu, whoever it would have been, makes sense because then you've got fly half 15 and centres covered. And Hugh Jones can cover wing. With this one, you have got 10-12, and Bundy Aki could always slide out to 13 if necessary, and then you've got all bases covered in the back 3. So those look to be the 2 combos, and that's certainly how I've been saying it. It would either be Marcus Smith and Bundy or Sione, or it would be Owen Farrell and Blair Kinghorn would be perfect combinations for the bench cover. But the Owen Farrell story is a huge one, isn't it? That is massive. Let's just touch on that for a second. What a story. And judging by a lot of the comments I've had on the channel, judging by what a lot of people have said, Owen Farrell has been one of the biggest stories of the British and Irish Lions. In some respects, if he hadn't been called up, it would have made a tour that a lot of people have been quite apathetic about even more boring, because he has been the biggest talking point. And I know, just looking at the comments that I get on most videos, that's not going to be popular with quite a lot of British and Irish Lions fans. Now, you can argue the merits of whether he deserved a call-up based on his rugby in the last year. And I'm sympathetic to the argument that he shouldn't have been if you were just counting rugby in the last year. If you're counting the body of someone's work, which I do think historical rugby comes into it, and look at the selection of Tyburn last week, just to demonstrate that historic form and what players have been capable of in the past is absolutely relevant to what their ceiling is when it comes to the most high-pressure games in big arenas. Tyburn absolutely demonstrated, whilst he hasn't been good on this tour, he is an absolute class act. I would argue that if you just take... That's obviously the reason why Owen Farrell has been selected into the squad, but park his form before the tour and before getting selected and just judge him on his last two turns for the Lions. For me, the best Lions player on Tuesday night, and he looked really, really good on the bench when he came on the other week. So I think purely for, if you can't have it both ways, you can't say Owen Farrell shouldn't be there because he hasn't been playing well enough, and now he is there, also say he shouldn't be in the team because I think his form on tour is good enough to get him into the 23. Does that make sense? I separate the two things. His form on tour gets him into the 23. Separate argument, should he have been on tour at all? But anyway, Owen Farrell's always one of those guys that splits opinion and makes people angry for some reason. But there you go. That's the way it is. That's the backs. As for the pack, Ollie Chesham coming in for Joe McCarthy, as expected. No change besides that, other than a switch off the bench. I say no other changes. There is one other change. Andrew Porter starts in an all-Irish front row. Ellis Genge onto the bench. Now, it's strange, isn't it? Ellis Genge didn't really get the nudge on Australia in the scrum in the first test. And it's easy to say after the fact, but there was a lot of people, myself included, kind of saying Ellis Genge's kind of got an impact kind of feel to him. Let him loose. He's like a caged animal. Let him loose with half an hour to go and he'll just snarl and go and carry hard and smash in the scrums and stuff. And that seems to be what Andy Farrell is doing. Either that or there's like some sort of quota of English and Irishmen in the pack. And Joe McCarthy's dropped out. So Andrew Porter, you're coming in, and Ollie Chesham's coming in, so Ellis Genge, you have to drop out. Back row, exactly the same, makes total sense. They were all absolutely awesome last week. But Jack Morgan in for Ben Earl, as I mentioned. Just cool for the game. Shame for Ben Earl, and his tour diary is going to be a little bit different that he writes this week. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes that, because I don't think Ben Earl's done anything wrong. But on making the positive case, Jack Morgan has done lots and lots of things right. James Ryan. Now, if you were picking just on form, on tour, Scott Cummings would be the next cab off the rank, purely based on what I've seen. But I think it's important to say as well, Andy Farrell, he made the right call on Tyburn and Tom Curry. And I've said this before, and I believe it would be the case. What you see in training with these players playing against each other is probably more relevant than watching a player go out and smash an average Waratahs team by 50. So the only opinion that matters at the end of the day is Andy Farrell's. He's the one that's going to be carrying the can if there's a mistake. And if you want someone to go and skittle people and hit rucks, James Ryan has proven himself. In fact, I think he's one of Ireland's most underrated players and underappreciated players. He's massively important, and they always just look to have a lot more solidity when he is playing. So I can go with it. As for the Wallabies, changes come finally. It's a must-win. They are staring down the barrel of a 3-0 whitewash, and they've brought some beef in, even if it's going to be slightly half-cooked after coming back from injury. Rob Valentini, it means we're going to hear Sean Maloney, the commentator, giving it the big old Bobby V. And Will Skelton is back in to add his 150 kilos to that Wallaby pack that needs a little bit of something. It needs a bit of juice. They've gone for a 6-2 split on the bench. Tom Hooper has dropped out. I feel a bit sorry for him. Langy Gleeson is coming in, and that's more like it. Parecki in at hooker. That is more like it from the Wallabies. I think Joe Schmidt will look back on this, and maybe in interviews in the future or in an autobiography or whatever, he'll say he made an error in not picking some of these guys, even if they weren't 100%. It just, they, as much as anything, as much as it's personnel, and Rob Valentini and Will Skelton, important personnel and the kind of guys that they need. There's others that he's left out that I think would have done the similar job. Taniela Tupou proved on Tuesday night how good he is. Salakai Lotto in 2 games against the Lions has been one of the best players on the pitch and has gone around rattling people, which is exactly what the Wallabies needed. So I think he's made an error in those 2 players not being involved. But as much as it's personnel, I think it's mentality as well. There was one moment that a lot of people in Australia have been talking about this week in the newspapers. The journalists have all been talking about the moment where Tom Liner got ragdolled, and in the way that Owen Farrell came in and stepped to the defence of Darcy Graham the other night. No Wallabies rushed in to look after Tom Liner. They're fresh, young, inexperienced fly half. You'd think some of the experienced guys, some of the bigger units would have come in and gone, no. Step back and taken care of their young fly half, but they didn't. And that's been mentioned a lot here in Australia. And I suspect we're going to see a big reaction. I think there'll be handbags. I think there'll be the first breakdown. It's going to be fierce. There'll be off the ball stuff. There'll be all sorts going on. They'll be trying to rattle the Lions' cages, because I think they will have got a rocket up them about how soft they were in that sense. And that is the top 2 inches. That's not about whether you're 150 kilos that Will Skelton is, whilst that will help. That is pure mentality, and the Wallabies did not have that mentality. And I think they're going to fight this week. They're going to fight like they are backed into a corner, which they are. They could be losing the series this weekend in Melbourne. So expect to see a reaction. The backline stays exactly the same, so a huge night for Tom Liner. He's been given another chance, and if he can be given a platform, maybe he can do what he has shown this season in Super Rugby. And the only change, actually, is that the wingers have swapped sides, which is an interesting one to look at. I'd love to know what tactically is going on there, what they're expecting from the Lions, how they're matching up, perhaps. But, there we go. I mean, I can't see past the Lions win. It's just when you look at the Lions bench, it looks pretty beefy to me. And one thing, there you go, I'll leave you with that. Now Bundyaki is in. Crocodile Bundy is going to be let loose in Australia. Thank you, ChatGPT, for coming up with the picture. But I just wish I'd got that done in time to get T-shirts made for the tour. But trademark egg chasers, Crocodile Bundy unleashed on the Wallabies. That's going to be the winning team in my book. Look at the power of the bench. Look at the power of the team. I just think they're going to be you're going to have too much. And I think the series will be ended in a funny way. And this is why Lions tours are a little bit different. If I was watching England, or I'm sure if you're Irish and you were watching Ireland, you'd love to see a 3-0 whitewash. I would also like to see a 3-0 whitewash, but there's a little part of me that just wants the Wallabies to at least make it really competitive. And I wouldn't even mind it that much if they won at the MCG. But I don't think they will. Right, I'll see you on the next one. Let me know what you think.